there's a famous author that says start with the end in mind. So bottom line is you got to plan this stuff in advance. You got to build that business on the 6Ps because then you're building an infrastructure. You're building a sustainable, scalable, and one day when you're ready, sellable business. We talk about the GPS, the exit model in Exit Rich as well, and when you should begin.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's Tax Rep Network podcast. I'm Eric Green. I'm very excited to have my friend Michelle Seiler Tucker here. If you don't know Michelle, you probably should. Whether you're a tax pro or a business owner, she is somebody that at some point you probably want to talk to. And so, Michelle, if you don't mind, I'm just going to read your bio because it's a lot easier than me trying to get all of this out by memory. So, Michelle Seiler Tucker is the founder and CEO of Seiler Tucker Incorporated. She holds the MNAMI Mergers and Acquisitions Master Intermediary title, as well as Certified Mergers and Acquisitions Professional, CMNAP, and Certified Senior Business Analyst, CSBA. Michelle also owns many other businesses in several different industries. As a 22-year veteran in the M&A industry, she's regarded as the leading authority on buying, selling, fixing, and growing businesses. She and her firm have sold over 100 and probably hundreds of
I was just going to say that bio's outdated.
So I grabbed the wrong one. She's been an Entrepreneur Magazine, Forbes, Inc. By the way, I know her because I'd already read her book when I got introduced to her, Exit Rich. We're going to be doing a webinar on this, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So Michelle, listen, thanks for taking the time. As much as I'd love to be in person, I thank you for taking the time for doing this. This is really what you do is kind of a hot topic right now. I mean, private equity and VCs are all running around, but I'm thinking more the accounting and tax industry in particular. And so for everyone listening, if you didn't sort out what Michelle does, she helps business owners sell businesses, maximizing value. And as the title said, for those of you watching the video, Exit Rich, which is her book, best-selling book that I'm holding. So what is going on right now in terms of the industry?
Well, I've been doing this to correct my own bio. I've been doing this for 26 years now, actually. So a very long time. And I've seen everything from the beginning of my career. I actually started as a franchise development business equity specialist doing franchise development, franchise sales, and franchise consulting. When I transitioned to M&A back in 2000, it's completely different than what it is today. Today, there's a lot of people say there's so much uncertainty, which there is uncertainty. Of course there is. But there are buyers, lots and lots and lots of buyers, probably more buyers now than there were back in 2000, 2001 when I started. Right. The difference, a big thing is that buyers are buying differently than they ever did before. They've got a different strategic approach. They're looking for different things than they looked for back in the 2000s. And it's really based upon it's based upon a lot of things. It's based upon mortgage rates. It's based upon the economy. It's based upon all different things. More so than ever before, buyers mitigate their risk. And they want to make sure when they're acquiring a business that it's a good, healthy business. Obviously, it's got to, the multiples got to, asking price has to support the EBITDA has to support that. Number one, but number two, it has to be a good business. It has to operate on what I call the 6Ps, which are an exit rich. Because many, many businesses have a great business. They have great revenues. They have great EBITDA, Eric, but guess what they don't have? They don't have a good solid team in place. They don't have good management in place. They are the business. You take them out of the business, there is no more company.
Right.
And then a lot of them get paid one way. In business, you never get paid one way. You have to have at least 3 to 7 different congruent revenue streams. If you don't, then you're going to suffer like a lot of businesses suffered during COVID. Look at the hospitality industry, the restaurant industry. They had one way they got paid.
Yep.
And so multiple profit streams, so multiple products. So you have to have the right people in place. You have to have the right products. You got to have processes. Your employees should not be running the business. The processes should be.
So I have to tell you, I picked up the book originally because I have clients that are looking to sell, and no one buys law practices really, but I've had people call about tax rep. And so it was so I learned so much, by the way. First of all, if for those of you who've not read the book, you should. There are stories about the kind of meeting with buyers, and some that had fatal flaws, and then there's some real success stories. And I found it very interesting. You're right. Where the owner is the business. Where the truth is, what are you selling? You can't sell yourself. So if at the end of the day, it's really you just creating income that's not saleable. And we obviously hear from a lot of either accountants looking to sell their practice, but they also have hundreds and hundreds of business clients.
Right.
And usually the first go-to person is their accountant. And often we would hear, well, I don't do this. What do I tell them to do? And we've heard all kinds of terrible advice that they've given clients, which is why I was so excited to have you on and do this webinar. And so you mentioned the 6 Ps, which you break down in the book. And I know we could do an entire day's course on this, but very quickly, can you just describe what those are for the audience?
Sure. So I already mentioned three of them. Number one is people. You have to have the right people in the right seats.
Right.
And if the business depends upon you, you have a job, not a company. Number two is products. You have to look at your product or your service industry and make sure it's still relevant. There's a lot of businesses that went out of business. A lot of industries are now obsolete. And then you got to make sure you have at least those 3 to 7 congruent revenue streams, processes. You have to have those processes in place. Again, employees don't run the business, processes do. And then dive into the other three real quick. The fourth one is proprietary, Eric. Proprietary is the highest value driver. If you've got those trademarks, if you've got those patents, if you've got those residual income coming in, if you've got a reoccurring subscription model, that is huge. And if you have a SaaS component, or if you have a SaaS component that can be licensed out to other industries, that's huge. Because remember, I told you at the beginning, buyers' buying method, buying criteria has changed exponentially. And most buyers now are really wanting to buy businesses and will pay top dollar for businesses that have that reoccurring subscription model. They want that mailbox money. That's what every buyer is looking for right now.
It's funny. So I'm going to bring this back for our audience. So Michelle, we've been on them about automating the client engagement letter, payment, the documents going into the software is all automated. And I just had a friend of mine who said, Eric, look, there's a real opportunity with these accounting firms. And this buddy, actually, it's Tony Carter, who I have the Success Tax podcast with, a very entrepreneurial guy. He's got 5 or 6 businesses at any given time, buying and selling. He's very successful. He said, you know what? We could roll up these accountants. They want to get rid of it. I said, whoa, time out. Because I know where we're going. Are they sitting there doing returns? He said, yeah, but we could do that. I'm like, no. I'm not buying a job. Now they have this automated. So what you and I then would need to do is meet the clients, make sure they like us, look for opportunities and that kind of stuff. That's great. So I think to bring this back to the P's, the buyer is going to look at what am I buying here? If I'm buying a job I have to sit at and do, I have no interest.
Correct.
If you have nothing that's really proprietary, why don't I just start a digital marketing campaign and just go get my own clients? What do I need you for? So for the people listening, when we've had Don Brolin on, Don talks about subscription pricing with these business clients. Mm-hmm. So you're not just doing a return, you're meeting quarterly, you're doing year-end planning, and she has all her clients on a subscription model, which she calls relationship pricing. And the money comes in first of the month, every single month.
Yeah.
And her tax season is done. They've already done all the planning through the year. In other words, it's the way that you want to work with clients, but she's got a business to sell. Anyone could step in there and run that.
Absolutely.
So yeah. And so yeah. When you come in, if somebody calls you, if an accountant says, look, I have a client or I want to sell, these are the things you're going to look for when you meet with them.
Yeah, so I'm very unique to most advisors, and I say that because of all of my experience and how I do things. Most businesses will fall apart during due diligence. So what we do during our appraisal is we really do a deep dive. Yes, we go through the financials. Yes, we're looking for those personal, non-recurring, and we're doing very deep dives on that, creating 5-year projections, etc. But what's really different is we take a deep dive in all those 6 Ps because we're going to give advice of, hey, Eric, maybe you should do this. Hey, Eric, we should do this. Hey, we should get this trademarked. Hey, we need a process here. So we really take our clients through the 6 Ps, a really deep dive so we can fix the business, tweak the business before we even go to market for the business. Because buyers buy EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. If it's a SaaS business or a recurring subscription model, they will pay a multiple of revenue versus a multiple of EBITDA. So it's very important to know what that adjusted EBITDA is. But more important than that is buyers don't just buy EBITDA or revenues. They buy synergies. They're going to buy those synergies that will catapult them to the next level, their business. I mean, we once sold an oil manufacturing company and we bought 7 offers to the table. My partners kept saying, no, too much risk, we're etc. And we don't want to do enough. We don't want to do this. We don't want to do that. And so I ended up finding a strategic buyer, and that buyer outbid everybody else because this company operated on all 6 Ps except for patrons. They had customer concentration, not customer diversification. They had 70% of their revenue tied up with British Petroleum. Well, we really had to mitigate that risk. But at the end, the client said to me, he says, the reason I'm willing to pay more money for this business is because I've been trying to get my foot in the door for BP for decades. And I know once I do, I can pay for this company in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so he paid 165% more for 70% of the business than what the business appraised for. So it's those synergies that create value. Yes, you have to have the EBITDA, you have to have the revenue to support the purchase price. But at the end of the day, you want to create a bidding war? How do you create a bidding war? We bring multiple people to the table and we highlight those synergies. We highlight your golden nuggets, your strengths. They're going to make someone pay more money than everybody else.
That's why also the team is very important. No, it is. And so I think one of the takeaways I want everyone to listening, because I will let you know how you can get in touch with Michelle and all that, is you start this process early. And that's the thing. That's why I actually picked up the book, because I had clients who ended up now in a terminal health situation, and now they think they're going to sell for top dollar. And first of all, it's like the sharks; they can smell blood in the water. But some of them ultimately, in one case, the buyers all I think realized they could just take the business if they waited long enough. It's not a gentleman's game. Let's just put it that way. But the key thing here is start early.
Yes.
I've actually told clients 5 years before you're planning to sell, start then. First of all, Michelle, because you're going to bring and this is why it's worth paying for this. You're going to bring a lot of value because you're going to be advising them. What about this? Change this. There's opportunities for them to maximize value based on your experience.
Right. 1,000%. And here's the biggest mistake I see business owners make is what you just said, Eric. They don't think about selling their business. They're too busy running their business. They're too busy working in their business. And they don't think about it till a catastrophic event occurs. And I've had a lot of women call me and say, hey, I had this happen in Dallas not too long ago. She said, my husband dropped dead of a heart attack at the age of 45. I know nothing about the business. I know nothing about the finances. And so I started asking her questions. He has a construction company. Does he have any employees? No, he just has 1099s. Are there any processes? No, they're in his head. Where are the books and records? Where are the books and records? Oh, he doesn't use QuickBooks. He keeps everything. And it was a pretty decent sized construction business, but when he died, the business died. So the reason we want to start early, it's like, oh my gosh, I just drew a blank. The guy that says start with the end in mind.
There are a lot of people that say that. But
no. There's a famous author that says start with the end in mind. So bottom line is you got to plan this stuff in advance. You got to build that business on the 6 Ps, because then you're building an infrastructure. You're building a sustainable, scalable, and one day when you're ready, sellable business. We talk about the GPS, the exit model in Exit Rich as well, and when you should begin.
Yeah, no, it is. It is really critical to start early. And again, I'm going to highly recommend it because I'm somebody I've been a tax attorney for 26 years. I was an accountant for auditor for 5 years prior to that. I would have told you, I mean, it's probably, like the stock pickers that have a little something, but I pretty much understand. I have to tell you, I learned so much reading the book. Things that I thought I knew, or, when I read it, I'm like, I hadn't thought about that. And of course I'm thinking about myself, but also now for like our tax rep members. And in fact, my talking about the book is what prompted their saying, can we like do a webinar? Like, in other words, instead of my like one-off throwing out comments, and that's when I said, well, maybe we can get Michelle to come on and do this because she is the expert at it. So what are the biggest mistakes aside from waiting until it's really kind of too late? What are the other are there other common mistakes you see people make?
There are a lot of mistakes. Absolutely. I mean, the biggest one is not planning your exit. Another big one that we see that can stop a deal in its tracks is misclassifying employees as 1099s. We were selling a manufacturing company. We found out very quickly that all the warehouse and manufacturing employees were not W-2s, they were 1099s. If a catastrophic event occurs in a warehouse or occurs in a manufacturing plant, and something bad happens, guess what? You're not going to have a business anymore. So then we have to go back through and we have to reclassify the employees, and that decreases EBITDA. That's a big mistake. Another big mistake that we see again is the business owners working in the business, not on the business, and they really haven't found a management team or a success plan. Also, not having employee contracts is a big mistake. That can be a huge issue. Buyers want to come in. They want to see a business is running. They want to see your contracts. They want to see your policies and procedures manuals. They want to see that you have stable long-term employees and the business can run without you. The other big thing is if you have client concentration, just like we talked about before, we got a company that's got 80% customer concentration in one grocery store, and that's an agriculture company. That's a huge mistake. And in IP, your proprietary assets, if you don't have a federal trademark on your company name, that's a huge mistake. And there's ways to get around that right now that are cheap and easy. And so we need to talk about that because you want to protect your proprietary assets. So I can go on and on and on.
Oh no, but,
One other mistake I want to tell you?
Yep.
Embezzlement. What is the numbers, Eric? I think it's like 3 out of 6 or 7 businesses will have an embezzlement.
It's always the bookkeeper.
What's that?
It's always the bookkeeper.
Well, I don't know. It's been a family member. It's been a partner. I've been doing this for a very long time, selling hundreds upon hundreds of businesses and doing over 1 million, probably over 1,000 evals. I've had it happen where it's family members, it's partners, it's, employees. But yeah, I mean, you've probably seen this as a bookkeeper. So there are so many mistakes. And like Eric just said, I've been in business for a long time. Eric is smart as a whip. He's good at what he does. He knows what he does. But we all kind of forget the little things. We forget the things that's going to make our business sellable. Forget the things that's going to add zeros. A lot of times we have to take away zeros. We have to minus the zeros instead of add the zeros, because if I have to reclassify employees or something else, then it's going to subtract from the EBITDA of the business, which will subtract zeros from your purchase price.
Oh, listen, yeah. I mean, they talk about like the warehouse with the 1099s versus W-2s. Yeah. It can be fixed. But to go back and do a voluntary disclosure, you're going to have to reclassify. You're going to have the tax interest penalties you're going to have to pay. It's going to drive your bottom line number down then. Even if you could explain that to a buyer and smooth it out the way it should have been, your EBIT is going down from where you thought it was.
And now you got upset, disgruntled employees because we're going to be making less money.
Oh, yeah, but they didn't want to be on W-2. That's why they were happy to be 1099.
Exactly. But some of these clients, I mean, like we've got a really big company out there that's in the sports industry. They manufacture things for the sports industry. And I said, gosh, was it their decision or yours? He said, no, it was my decision. I wanted to save money. I said, well, you trying to save money is going to cost you a lot more money in the end.
Right.
So it's not an easy thing.
I think the lesson, though, is there are folks who don't think of their business as an asset. And I think that is the real difference between business owners and entrepreneurs. People tell me, they use them interchangeably, and they're not. Entrepreneurs are folks who go in with the end in sight. I want to get this business. I want to grow it to X. I want to flip it for, X plus and leave. And so because of that, they have a game plan to check all the boxes and get to that point where the business owner is just trying to make a living, right? They're working in it, not working on it. They don't view it as an asset, or maybe they do theoretically, but they don't view it as another asset that they're trying to maximize value. It's almost like it's their day job,
Right.
and that's the big difference. So to go from the I own a business to I'm going to shift to entrepreneur, you need to start early, and there are going to be a lot of things you probably need to change and clean up. So you need that runway to get, at least if you want to get to the number you want.
There's a lot of things to look for, and you asked about mistakes earlier, and that is one of the biggest mistakes is that they're acting like business owners, they're not acting like entrepreneurs, and they just overlook things. I mean, I had a plastics manufacturing company. Plastic manufacturing, if you know anything about it, they have very tight, squeaky tight margins, and the company it was had all foreign employees because it was foreign owners, but their culture believes in taking care of them, which is good. You should take care of your employees, but they kept raising them, raises every year, every year, every year. They actually priced themselves out of a business. They kept having to put money in to cover all these expensive raises that they were giving. And you know what? They weren't sellable. They ended up becoming out of business. We had another company that was a marketing company, but they had customer concentration. They had 5 clients because they marketed to casinos. And I said, gosh, if you lose one or two of these clients, you're out of business. What happened? They lost 2 clients.
They went out of business.
Yeah, so I ended up merging them with another company. But there's just all kinds of little things like this that business owners just don't think about.
It's I had they're very good friends of mine, but I had folks come to me, mattress manufacturing, and they had a payroll tax problem, and we're going through things. I said, "There's something wrong. There's something wrong." They had Bob's Discount Furniture was one of their big clients, and I kept telling them there's something wrong. The fact that you keep having a payroll tax issue, you're not priced properly. There's something else going on. So they called me that a friend of theirs is going to come in, and that friend's going to help them. And I said, "Who's the friend? An M&A turnaround person, a CPA." He's a chicken farmer. I said, "Why did you bring in a chicken farmer?" They said he knows cost accounting. Do you know that in 3 hours he came to them? He said, "You're losing money on every truck that goes out the door." And he broke down for them. Same thing. They had excess employees, the overhead, whatever. He said, "You make huge margins on what you sell directly online. You're losing money on Bob's. Get rid of Bob's." Bob's actually told them they were the only company to ever fire Bob's. No one fires Bob's once they have that account. But they couldn't compete at that because they had to be on razor thin margins. One truck breaks down, or they have a couple extra employees that they felt bad for and gave more shifts to. And before you know it, they're not making money. They managed to turn around. They're very successful now. They sell completely online. They, instead of 200 employees, they have 12. And UPS comes in.
Wow.
UPS picks up the inventory every morning. No more trucks, no more truck drivers, no more trucks breaking down in the middle of the night. So having a real good handle on your expenses and all of that, you would think would be obvious, but it's certainly critical because a buyer is going to look at it very hard.
Yeah, a buyer's going to look at everything. And another big mistake that business owners make, and I will tell you, 26 years I've been doing this business, I've only seen maybe 2 or 3 get it right. And we're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and probably over 1,000 at this point. But at any rate, what had happened was what happens all the time is 99.9% of businesses are asset sales, not stock sales. A lot of business owners have clients and they have vendors and they have contracts. And it's very important to look at that contract. And if I hope you're listening to me right now, because go get your contracts, look at them right now and tell me if they're transferable or not. Most contracts are not transferable. And you heard me tell a story about British Petroleum.
Yeah.
That contract was not transferable. That buyer took a huge risk. There were no clawbacks. There was no, language in the closing documents to protect his investment. If he didn't get BP, the British Petroleum contract, that was on him. It was not transferable. It ended up becoming transferable. We just sold another large company, a maritime company, and their contracts were not transferable. That took us 90 days after the close. Money was held in escrow to go and get those contracts transferable. So that's a very big mistake that a lot of business owners make that you really need to go and review.
Right. You think you can transfer everything, and you might not be able to unless the buyer buys the entity, which does bring risk, the unknown liability risk.
Yeah, there was a big franchisor out there. I'm not going to say who, but they sold to a private equity firm, and they sold for about 6, 7, 8 multiple. It was a pretty big sell. Problem is representation. They really didn't do their due diligence. None of those franchise, and I did not handle that deal, by the way. I did not handle that deal. That was not
All right,
me.
Michelle had nothing to do with this.
But none of those contracts, none of those franchisor contracts were transferable, Eric. None of them. And then when the company went in, they called me in later to fix it, see if I could fix it because my background is in franchising. And so none of them were transferable. They had this big meeting, this big dog and pony show where they flew everybody out to Vegas. And out of all, I think there was like 150 franchisees back then. Out of all of them, only 2 transferred over. So you really got to have proper representation. You got to make sure you have an advisor, crossing the T's, dotting those I's. And especially in the legal side too. I mean, the legal side on that due diligence team really messed up and they
Yeah.
ended up suing their attorneys, but
No,
they ended up
absolutely.
also filing bankruptcy.
So, for the accountants and attorneys who are listening to this, if they have clients who are maybe thinking of selling, how can they work with you?
Well, you can work with me very easily. I make it easy. Number one, we'll set up a meeting with your client. If you want to sit on it, you can. We just did a deal where the CPA was on every single call with the owners. And what they can work with me, I'll make it easy. I'll make it seamless. We'll take very good care of our clients. And guess what? We'll also pay a referral fee.
So,
That is legal, right?
oh yeah, no, absolutely. No, it is perfectly fine. No, if I were an attorney and it were my client, I might have to disclose that because now I potentially have a conflict of interest. But for the accountants, for making the introduction, I remember their clients are going to get their own representation, all of that. But no, the fact is they can get a referral fee, and it's first of all, and the other thing, just from the accountant's perspective to be able to discuss, listen to Michelle, like join us for that. We're going to be doing a free webinar on December 12th. I'll put the link in the description. To be able to talk the talk, first of all, you become right away, you go up a few levels in the eyes of your client. The fact that you understand this. You will also, I find, attract better clients because they know that you are a sophisticated CPA or EA. And the reality is you're going to bring in Michelle, and Michelle is going to bring all that expertise to the table. Yes, you can get paid. But so you have potential clients that may be looking to sell. And at some point, you might be thinking about it yourself. And everything we just discussed is going to apply to you as well. Do you have processes in place? Is it automated? Do you have a team? Or are you sitting there banging out tax returns on your laptop at night? No one wants to buy a job. They do want to buy a business. And again, we're talking multiple, of potentially of revenue. If you've done the automations and have those processes, if it's just you'll be lucky to get 0.8 because anyone buying it's going to be buying a job, and they're just not going to pay as much.
Yeah,
And this is the
absolutely.
reality of it.
Yeah, you'll be doing a great service for your clients because helping your clients exit rich. I mean, what more can you do for your clients? They'll love you forever. And then we're also always looking for good accounting firms and good lawyers all throughout the country because we do business all throughout the United States and Canada, Eric.
Yeah.
So we're also looking for referral sources too.
No, absolutely. So, Michelle, for folks listening to this, if they want to get in touch with you, how best to do it? Is it email, LinkedIn? How's the best way for them to connect with you?
So you can definitely find me on LinkedIn, Michelle Seiler Tucker. I love to talk to people. I'm a people person. My office is 504-525-1717, Eric. And I'll send you the 1-800 number so they can also call us on that line. And then if you like to email, you can email to, I'm not going to give you my email address because I get inundated. But you can email to Michelle Seiler Tucker, Michelle at SeilerTucker.com and Alan at SeilerTucker.com.
Okay.
And use both email addresses so I don't mess your email. But I love phone calls. I love talking to people. You can find us on LinkedIn. We have a calendar. We can schedule a meeting with you if you want to start with email. But I would love the opportunity to work with you and your clients.
Right. And remember, December 12th, we're going to be doing a webinar. It's free. I'll put the link in the description below. I think I titled it Exit Rich after the book. And join us if you can, because it's going to be fascinating. By the way, I always get this question, even if you can't join us live, if you register, you will still get a link to the recording afterward. To the extent then you want to connect with Michelle because she'll be giving us more information. Uh, it's a great opportunity for you to, again, go up a few notches in the eyes of your clients, potentially get paid, and also things to think about for yourself. So it's a great topic, timely topic.
And it's fun.
Yeah. No, it is. Reading the book, again, for someone who thought he was pretty up to speed, I learned so much.
I've had businesses, 10, 15, $20 million businesses read the book and then get in touch with us and say, look, I thought I needed 6 Ps, but I don't. How can you can help us? I had one company because we did pre-sale. So we unfortunately came out right when COVID started. And
Right.
it's still a Wall Street Journal USA Today bestseller, and actually had enough sales to make the New York Times. But we were doing pre-sales, and we were just sending out the manuscript, and people said they were printing it and really taking that to their meetings and mapping out the blueprint for their business plan, business model going forward. So it's endorsed by Steve Forbes. Sharon
Good.
Lechter, who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki, is
Yeah.
my co-author. I wrote about 98. She wrote the rest, but she's a good co-author.
Yeah.
And she's an accountant, and her husband is an IP attorney.
Yeah, no, it's again, I read it mostly because I get questions every now and then, and it was a bestseller, and so I got the book and I started reading it, and I got very drawn in because I was like, I hadn't thought of that, I didn't think of that. Ooh, I should really think about that. And so it was eye opening. It was a quick read, and again, for the accountants listening to this, it arms you to be able to talk at least intelligently to lay the groundwork for clients, and why you can explain you need to start the process early. This is going to take time. It isn't 30, 60 days out you've got a buyer. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's a process, and that process will probably help them maximize value. The earlier the start, the more value they can get.
Absolutely. And like we said, the book is really a blueprint. We start with the end in mind. Stephen Covey.
Stephen
That's who
Covey.
that. We start with the end in mind. I knew it would come
Okay.
to me. And we start with the GPS exit. But yeah, we've gotten a lot of good accolades. The book has won a lot of awards and things like that. And if you don't like to read, that's okay because we have the Audible version as
The
well.
Audible version.
We do. And
Yep.
if you like my voice, great. If you don't, good, because it's not my voice.
See, I have both because I read the book, and then I was going to I forget what it was. I ended up buying it on Audible at the airport, and I ended up listening to it across the country again. No, it's there's a lot of great information in there, and I'm looking forward to the webinar on the 12th. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think is a great opportunity to just gain, more information into a field that you might not be as familiar with because this CPA, this accountant that sat on a call, on pretty much every call, he actually came up with his own EBITDA calculation. And his own EBITDA calculation was about $1.2 million more than our EBITDA calculation. And the reason for that is because he was including all the owner salaries, and there's six of them. And I said, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. How'd you come up with this? He goes, well, we're going to add back all their salaries. I said, the business can run without them? And he said, oh, I didn't think about that.
You didn't think about. Well, apparently they're going to leave it. It's just going to sit here and run itself.
And he's a great accountant, but my seller was like, wait a minute, you're 1,200 more than her EBITDA. That's only going to cut on our purchase price.
Yeah.
And I just said, look, it's not his fault because most people don't understand the entire process. There's a lot that goes into selling a company, a lot of moving
Well,
parts. And just when you think you figured it all out, there's something else. But so he said on every call, he's like, okay, now I know I know how to calculate EBITDA. Because we didn't add those owners back. We added back partial one of those owners.
Right.
And so we'll get into that and we'll talk about all the reasons why we do what we do and how we come up with our valuations. And again, it's all synergistic based. It's based upon those golden nuggets. It's based upon that hidden value, that hidden treasure that companies have. Accounting practices have a lot of hidden treasure. I've got some accounting firms, look at them and go, wow, you really innovated. You really turned your company upside down.
Right. Now, so Michelle, listen, thank you. I'm going to put a link to your LinkedIn profile in the description. I'm also going to go ahead and put a link to the webinar so everyone can register. It's free on December 12th. And Michelle, thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Can I give them one more piece of information?
Absolutely.
If we can add one more thing, go listen to the Exit Rich podcast.
That's right. You have a podcast. I forgot.
We have a podcast, and we used to interview lawyers, accountants, marketing companies. We used to interview all of those really specialty companies that all business owners need, right?
Yep.
Now we're interviewing Shark Tank guests. There's a lot of value in that. But I'm looking forward to the webinar. Thank you so much, Eric. You've been a pleasure to work with, and I'm excited to meet your fan base, your clients, your friends.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And everyone, thanks for listening in, and I'll see you next week on the podcast.
Thank you.